You have 3 months to find a wife, or you lose everything. Anthony Ike stared at his father across the mahogany desk, certain he had misheard. The Largo skyline gleamed through the windows of Ike Industries' top floor, 30 stories above Victoria Island's bustling streets. At 32, Anthony had given his entire life to this company, working 18-hour days to prove himself worthy of the family legacy. Now his father wanted to take it all away because he wasn't married. "Papa, you cannot be serious," Anthony said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Chief Arinze Ike leaned back in his leather chair, his expression unmoved. At 68, the old man commanded respect from governors and presidents, but to Anthony he was simply the father who had never been satisfied with anything less than perfection. "The board has spoken," Chief Arinze said firmly. "They want stability, a family man running the company, not a playboy." "Playboy?" Anthony stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. "When have I ever been a playboy? I work every single day. I don't even have time to date. Exactly my point." His father's eyes narrowed. "You're 32 years old, Anthony. Your mother, God rest her soul, gave me 5 children by that age. Your sisters are all married. Even your youngest sister just had her second child. But you, nothing." Anthony walked to the window, watching the ant-like people below rushing through their daily lives. They had no idea that up here, his entire world was crumbling. "Every woman I meet only wants my money," he said quietly. "Remember Chidera? She asked about my property portfolio before asking my middle name. Or Kemi, who tried to get pregnant after our second date by poking holes in." "Enough." Chief Arinze raised his hand. "I don't care about your excuses. 3 months, Anthony. Find a good woman from a respectable family, or your cousin Charles takes over as CEO. "Charles?" Anthony spun around. "Charles, who has never worked a day in his life. Charles, who spent his trust fund on parties in London. Charles, who is married with 3 children, his father countered. Charles, who understands that family is the foundation of everything we build." The injustice of it burned in Anthony's chest. He had sacrificed everything for this company. While Charles partied in London nightclubs, Anthony had been negotiating contracts in boardrooms. While Charles played happy family man, Anthony had been expanding their tech empire across Africa. "This isn't fair," Anthony said. "Life isn't fair." Chief Arinze stood, signaling the conversation was over. "Your grandfather built this company from nothing, selling palm oil in the village market. He understood that a man without family is a man without purpose. You have 3 months. That Sunday, Anthony sat in Christ Embassy, Victoria Island, his mind still reeling from his father's ultimatum. The massive church could hold 5,000 people, and every seat was filled. In the 3rd row, he noticed Diana Obioma, the lead chorister, stealing glances at him. Beautiful, sophisticated, daughter of a senator, exactly the kind of woman his father would approve of. But something felt wrong. Every smile seemed calculated, every gesture performed for his benefit. After service, as Anthony walked to his car, a small boy ran up to him, tears streaming down his face. "Sir, please help!" "My ball fell in the gutter." Anthony looked down at the child, maybe 6 years old, wearing a faded Manchester United jersey. Without hesitation, he followed the boy to the drainage gutter. Removing his designer jacket, Anthony climbed down and retrieved the muddy football. "Thank you, sir." The boy beamed. "I want to be like Ronaldo." "David! David, where are you?" a woman's voice called out, panicked. Anthony turned to see a young woman rushing toward them, her church usher uniform slightly disheveled. When she saw her son talking to a stranger, fear flashed across her face before recognition set in. "Mr. Anthony Ike?" she said, surprised. "I'm so sorry if David bothered you." "Not at all," Anthony replied, studying her. Unlike the other women who usually approached him, she seemed genuinely flustered, even embarrassed. "He's a good boy. Thank you for helping him." She grabbed David's hand. "We should go." As they walked away, Anthony watched them. The woman had barely looked at him, hadn't tried to extend the conversation, hadn't even introduced herself properly. It was the first honest interaction he'd had in months. 3 days later, Anthony walked through the automatic doors of ShopRite in Lekki, his sister's shopping list in hand. He had no idea what half these items even looked like. As he stood confused in the cosmetics aisle, holding something called edge control, a familiar voice called out, "Mr. Anthony, what a surprise." He turned to find Diana Obioma, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her dress probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, and her smile was perfectly practiced. "Diana," he acknowledged. "Hello. You look lost," she laughed, a tinkling sound that seemed rehearsed. "Shopping for someone special?" "My sister," Anthony replied, showing her the list. "Oh, let me help." Before he could protest, she'd taken the list and his cart. "I know exactly where everything is." For the next 30 minutes, Diana performed what could only be described as a one-woman show. She laughed at jokes he didn't make, touched his arm repeatedly, and made sure everyone in the store noticed them together. When other shoppers recognized him, she positioned herself as if they were a couple. "You must come to my birthday party this Friday," she said as they finished, pressing an invitation into his hand. "It would mean everything to me." Anthony wanted to refuse, but his father's words echoed in his mind. Diana was exactly what the board wanted. Beautiful, from a prominent family, Christian. Maybe he was being too picky. "I'll try to make it," he said. Friday evening found Anthony at the Oriental Hotel's ballroom, surrounded by Lagos's elite. Diana had rented the entire space, complete with a red carpet and photographers. The moment he arrived, she attached herself to his side. "Everyone, look who's here," she announced loudly. "Anthony Ike himself." She introduced him to everyone as if he were already her boyfriend, her hand possessively on his arm. When he mentioned he had to leave early for a conference call, her face fell dramatically. "But you just got here," she pouted. "The night is young." "I'm sorry, but business doesn't wait," Anthony said, extracting himself from her grip. As he drove home, something felt deeply wrong. Diana was everything his father wanted, but her interest felt suffocating, calculated. She looked at him the way a hunter looks at prey. That night, Anthony found his father in the study. "I met someone," he said. "Diana Obioma, Senator Obioma's daughter." Chief Arinze's face lit up. "Excellent choice. Beautiful girl, good family. When will you propose?" "Papa, I need to be sure she loves me, not just my money." His father laughed. "How will you know that?" "Every woman in Lagos knows who you are." Anthony was quiet for a moment. Then an idea struck him. "What if they didn't know who I was?" "What do you mean?" "Next Sunday, I'll disguise myself as a beggar outside the church. Cousin Charles can attend service in my place. We look similar enough. I'll see how these women really behave when they think no one important is watching." Chief Arinze studied his son. "You want to test them?" "The Bible says we should be wise as serpents. I need a woman with a true heart, Papa. Someone who shows kindness even to the lowest among us." His father was silent for a long moment. "Your grandfather did something similar once. He pretended to be a poor farmer to test your grandmother's family." He smiled at the memory. "Do what you must, my son." Sunday morning arrived, grey and humid. Anthony had spent the previous day in the mainland markets, buying the most tattered clothes he could find. He rubbed dirt on his face, under his nails, and practiced slouching to hide his height. By the time he was done, even he didn't recognize himself. Charles, his cousin visiting from London, walked into the room and laughed. "You look terrible." "That's the point." Anthony handed him the keys to his Mercedes. "Remember, you're me today. Sit in the third row, be polite, but distant." "This is insane," Charles said, but he was grinning. "What if someone recognizes you?" "They won't. Nobody really looks at beggars." As the church service proceeded inside, Anthony positioned himself at the gate, a cardboard sign beside him reading, "Please help. Hungry and homeless. God bless you." The service ended and people began streaming out. Anthony kept his head down, occasionally calling out weakly for help. Most people walked past without a glance. Then he heard Diana's distinctive laugh. She emerged in a designer dress surrounded by her friends, live streaming on her phone. Anthony's heart pounded as she approached. "Sister, please," he called out softly. "Anything to help." Diana stopped, her face twisting in disgust. She quickly ended her live stream and turned to him with pure contempt. "Security," Diana's voice cut through the air like a whip. Why is this filthy creature allowed near our church? Anthony kept his head down, his heart sinking with each word. You smell like a gutter rat, Diana continued, her friends giggling behind her. This is Victoria Island, not some slum. You're probably not even really poor, just another lazy Nigerian who wants free money instead of working. Diana, that's enough, one of her friends whispered, noticing people staring. No, these people need to learn, Diana snapped. You think because you sit outside a church, money will fall from heaven. Get a job, you lazy goat. She stepped around him carefully, as if he might contaminate her shoes, and walked away laughing with her friends. Anthony's hands trembled, not from hurt, but from seeing her true nature so starkly revealed. Minutes later, he heard a small voice. Mummy, that uncle looks hungry. Anthony looked up slightly to see the boy from last week, David, pulling his mother's hand. It was the same woman who had been so flustered when he'd helped retrieve the ball. Amanda, he remembered someone calling her. Can I give him my biscuit, Mummy? David asked. Amanda knelt beside her son, smoothing his jersey. Of course, my dear. That's what God wants us to do, help those in need. David approached Anthony shyly, extending a packet of biscuits. Sir, this is for you. Anthony's throat tightened. Thank you, young man. Amanda reached into her purse, and Anthony could see her counting carefully. She pulled out 200 naira. He noticed it left her with very little. It's not much, she said softly, pressing the money into his palm. But buy some pure water at least. The sun is harsh today. God bless you, my daughter, Anthony managed, his voice thick with emotion. We're all God's children, Amanda replied simply. Come, David. Grandpa is waiting for his medicine. As they walked away, David turned back and waved. Anthony watched them disappear into the crowd, his mind spinning. This woman who clearly had little had given from her heart. Diana, who had everything, had given only cruelty. The next Sunday, Anthony returned to his spot, determined to confirm what he'd seen wasn't a fluke. This time, Amanda appeared with a plastic bag. Baba, I brought this for you, she said, kneeling despite her white dress. Inside was a loaf of bread and a bottle of Coke. I bought it on my way to church this morning. Anthony was stunned. She had thought of him during the week, planned to help him. My daughter, you're too kind, he said. It's my salary week, Amanda laughed, a genuine sound that made him smile. We must thank God by sharing with others. She pressed 500 naira into his hand. Please use this for food this week. Before he could respond, Diana appeared with her entourage. Anthony made the mistake of calling out, My daughter, any help today? Diana whirled around, her face contorting with rage. How dare you call me your daughter? Do I look like I could be related to something like you? She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. If I see you here again next week, I'll have my father's police escorts deal with you. You disgust me. Amanda, who had been walking away, turned back. She waited until Diana left, then returned to Anthony. Don't mind her, she said gently. Some people forget that we're all equal before God. Are you okay? Anthony nodded, too moved to speak. The third Sunday came with heavy clouds threatening rain. Anthony almost didn't go. He'd seen enough. But something compelled him to complete the test. This time, Amanda looked exhausted. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usual bright smile dimmed. My daughter, you look troubled, Anthony said. My father is sick, she admitted, sitting on the pavement beside him, not caring about her dress. He's in the hospital. The bills are… She trailed off, shaking her head. But God will provide. He always does. Where is David today? With my neighbor. I had to go to the hospital at dawn to give my father his injection before coming to church. She reached into her purse and pulled out 100 naira, clearly all she had. Please, take this. No, my daughter, your father needs… And you need food, Amanda interrupted gently. My father taught me that when we give from our lack, God multiplies our blessings. She stood to leave, then paused. Baba, can I ask you something? Why do you sit here every Sunday? There are shelters, programs. Anthony's heart raced. Had she recognized him? Sometimes, he said carefully, God puts us in places to test not ourselves, but others. Amanda studied him for a long moment, and Anthony saw something flicker in her eyes. Not recognition, but understanding. Monday morning arrived with Anthony unable to focus on anything. The quarterly board meeting passed in a blur, his mind replaying Amanda's words. When we give from our lack, God multiplies our blessings. By noon, he couldn't wait any longer. He drove to Royal Furnishings in Lekki, where he'd learned Amanda worked. The showroom smelled of fresh wood polish and new leather. Amanda stood near the counter, explaining fabric options to a customer. When she saw him walk in, clean-shaven, wearing a tailored Tom Ford suit, her professional smile froze. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Royal Furnishings," she said automatically, though her eyes showed confusion. Something about him seemed familiar. Anthony waited until the other customer left, then approached the counter. "Hello, Amanda." She blinked. "You know my name?" "Have we met before, sir?" "Yes," Anthony said softly. "Several times. You gave me bread and 500 naira and told me that God would provide." The color drained from Amanda's face. She gripped the counter for support. You're the... But how? "Please, let me explain," Anthony said quickly, seeing her distress. "Can we sit?" Amanda led him to the customer waiting area, her movements mechanical, shocked. Anthony told her everything: his father's ultimatum, the test, why he'd disguised himself. "I needed to know who would love me for myself, not my money," he finished. "Every Sunday, dozens of women who smile at me in church walked past without a second glance. But you saw a human being who needed help." Amanda was quiet for a long moment, then anger flashed in her eyes. "You lied to me. You made me believe you were suffering." "I'm sorry," Anthony said, "but would you have been yourself if you'd known who I was?" "I would have been exactly the same." Amanda stood abruptly. "Because I don't care about your money, Mr. Ike. I help people because it's right, not because I want something from them." "I know," Anthony said. "That's why I'm here. To mock me? To test me more? To ask you to dinner?" Amanda laughed bitterly. "The billionaire wants to take the poor single mother to dinner. How charitable." "Please," Anthony said, "just one dinner. Let me show you who I really am, without the disguise." "I can't," Amanda said. "I have to get my father's medicine after work. Then pick up David. Then—" "Bring David," Anthony interrupted. "Bring your father too, if he's well enough. I want to know your family." Amanda studied him for a long moment. "Why are you really doing this?" "Because in 3 Sundays, you showed me more genuine kindness than I've seen in years," Anthony said simply. "Because your son offered his biscuit to a stranger. Because even when your father was sick, you still thought of others." That evening, Anthony sent his driver to pick them up. David was ecstatic about riding in the big car, chattering non-stop about football. Amanda sat quietly, wearing the same dress she wore to church, having refused the designer outfit Anthony had sent. At the restaurant, a quiet place overlooking the lagoon, David's eyes widened at the menu. "Mummy, they have ice cream with gold on it." "It's just decoration, baby," Amanda said softly. "Order whatever you want," Anthony encouraged. "David, do you still want to be like Ronaldo?" As David launched into an enthusiastic discussion of football, Anthony watched Amanda slowly relax. She laughed at her son's stories, gently corrected his table manners, and gradually began responding to Anthony's questions about her life. "David's father," Anthony asked carefully when the boy went to the bathroom. "Disappeared when I told him I was pregnant," Amanda said matter-of-factly. "We were supposed to get married after secondary school. He ran to Malaysia instead." "I'm sorry." "I'm not," Amanda said firmly. "David is my blessing. We manage." After dinner, as they waited for dessert, Anthony made a decision. He pulled out a small velvet box. "Amanda, I know this seems fast." "Stop," Amanda gasped. "Please, stop." "Hear me out," Anthony said, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "I have 3 months to find a wife, yes. But that's not why I'm doing this. You showed me what real love looks like. Selfless, generous, kind. Marry me." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you give when you have nothing. I know you're raising an amazing son alone. I know you honor your father despite your struggles." "I'm not from a rich family," Amanda whispered. "I didn't go to university. I don't know anything about your world." Then teach me about yours, Anthony said. The world where people help strangers. Where single mothers become heroes. Where faith means something real. David returned to find his mother crying and Anthony holding a ring. Mummy, are you sad? No, baby, Amanda managed, just surprised. Is Uncle Anthony going to be my daddy? David asked innocently. The question hung in the air like suspended breath. Yes, Amanda whispered, her voice barely audible over the restaurant's soft music. Yes, I'll marry you. David cheered so loudly that other diners turned to stare, but Anthony didn't care. He slipped the ring onto Amanda's finger, his hands trembling with joy. Within days, Lagos society was buzzing with the news. The headlines screamed from every blog. Billionaire Anthony Ike engaged to unknown church usher. And, from beggar to billionaire, the truth about Anthony's disguise. Diana Obioma sat in her bedroom, staring at her phone in disbelief. The man she'd called a lazy goat, the beggar she'd threatened with police, that had been Anthony Ike, the very man she'd performed for, schemed for, dreamed of marrying. Her phone rang. It was her mother. Diana, is it true? Did you really insult Anthony Ike when he was testing women's hearts? Mama, I didn't know. The video is everywhere. Someone recorded you calling him disgusting. Our family name is ruined. Diana ended the call and buried her face in her pillow, sobbing. Her Instagram followers were dropping by thousands. The comments were brutal. She had lost everything in her pursuit of everything. Meanwhile, at the Ike family compound, Chief Arinze welcomed Amanda with open arms. My daughter, he said warmly, Anthony told me about your kindness. You remind me of his late mother. She also had a generous heart. Amanda's father, Mr. O'Keefe, was flown to London for treatment. The best doctors money could buy worked to restore his health. David was enrolled at the British International School, with after-school football coaching at the Lagos Football Academy. The wedding took place 6 weeks later at the Cathedral Church of Christ in Marina. It was the event of the year. Governors, CEOs, and celebrities filled the pews. But Anthony only had eyes for Amanda, radiant in her simple but elegant white gown. During the reception at Echo Hotel, Amanda insisted on inviting all the church ushers, the security guards, and even the beggars who sat outside the church. These are my people, she told Anthony. If I forget them now, I forget who I am. Chief Arinze stood to give a toast, his voice carrying across the ballroom. My son tested many hearts to find true love. He found something rarer than diamonds, a woman who gives from her lack, who sees the invisible, who loves without conditions. He raised his glass. To Anthony and Amanda, may your marriage be built on the foundation of kindness you've already shown. As the couple danced, Diana watched from across the street, having been unable to secure an invitation. She saw the joy on Anthony's face, the way he looked at Amanda like she was his whole world. That could have been her if only she'd shown kindness to a stranger. 1 year later, Amanda gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. David was the proudest big brother, carrying his siblings around carefully, telling everyone who would listen about his new family. Amanda established the Grace Foundation, using Anthony's resources to feed thousands of street families across Lagos. Every Sunday, she personally served food outside the church, where she'd first shown kindness to a beggar. Why do you still do this yourself? Anthony asked one Sunday, watching her ladle soup into bowls. We have staff who could handle this. Because, Amanda said, smiling at a homeless child, the moment I become too important to serve others is the moment I lose myself. Anthony joined her, serving beside his wife, remembering the Sundays when he sat in the dust testing hearts. He had searched for love in all the wrong places, among the wealthy and sophisticated. But true love had come from an unexpected source, a single mother who had nothing but gave everything. Diana eventually left Lagos, unable to bear the shame. She moved to Dubai, starting over where nobody knew her story. But every time she saw a beggar, she remembered her cruelty and wondered what blessings she had walked past in her pride. Chief Arinze lived to see 5 grandchildren from Anthony and Amanda. On his deathbed, he held his son's hand. You chose well, my son, he whispered. She was worth more than all the wealthy daughters in Nigeria. At his funeral, Amanda spoke. Chief taught us that wealth means nothing without kindness, that true riches come from lifting others. As the years passed, Anthony and Amanda's love story became legend in Lagos, proof that love sees beyond appearances, that kindness is never wasted, and that sometimes angels come disguised as beggars to test the true nature of our hearts. David grew up to play for the Super Eagles, always pointing to the sky after scoring, remembering the day his small act of sharing biscuits had changed their lives forever. And in their mansion in Banana Island, surrounded by children and grandchildren, Anthony and Amanda grew old together. Their love built not on money or status, but on the simple foundation of kindness shown to a stranger outside a church. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and comment at the comment section below.